All right. I think we're rocking and rolling. Hey, welcome everybody to another Monday installment of Parents Helping Parents Live. Thanks for joining us. Um, I didn't even think about this. I sat down in front of my screen to get all this prepped and realized that I still look like I'm dressed for lake vacation, which I am. I just got here today. So the great thing about these live streams is we can continue to do them from anywhere around the world. I happen to be at the lake. Our guest Amy, I think, happens to be in Oklahoma City. Maybe you're watching from China. I don't know. Lots of different things could be happening tonight, but either way, we're glad that you're spending your Monday with us. There's lots of different ways that you can be utilizing your time, and we're always honored that you can be a part of what we're doing here. So maybe this is the first time you've encountered Parents Helping Parents. Maybe you're watching this because a friend shared it on their Facebook page, or you're somehow catching it on YouTube. Parents Helping Parents is an Oklahoma-based nonprofit organization founded by parents, for the most part run by parents, with the mission of sharing experience, providing education, and connecting people to resources, specifically for parents who have a child any age that might be struggling with a substance use disorder. We serve lots of families who maybe have 13, 14, 17-year-olds who are early in the process of discovery and experimentation with drugs and alcohol. We want to help those parents. We want to share our experiences. We want to connect them to resources, and we want to provide some education. But we also work with parents all the way on the other end of the spectrum who maybe have been struggling with a son or a daughter for a long time, who's been in active addiction or in and out of recovery, or who has found long-term recovery, and they just want to be a part of the support group and help pass along some of their message of hope as well. So wherever you might find yourself tonight, I think you're in the right spot. Even if you're not a parent, maybe you've got another family member who struggles. All the work is the same. Addiction is addiction when it's affecting one of your loved ones, whether it's a son or a daughter or a spouse or a best friend or whatever that might look like. We want to be here to provide all of those things for you. So thanks for joining us. If you are watching live on Facebook, do me a favor, reach over, click the share button. That exponentially increases the amount of people we can reach. So it shares our video straight to your newsfeed so that all of the people that you're friends with might see the message, even though they don't follow Parents Helping Parents on Facebook. Most likely somebody on your friends list has a family member, has a relative, has a close friend, or they themselves are struggling with a substance use disorder or emotional illness. So really, if you think about it, sharing this video literally could save a life. It could be the thing that initiates change for that person. It could be the final kind of straw on the back of pain and suffering, a final straw of hope, a final strand of good news that somebody might hear that might send them on a path of recovery and on a path of change. So there's no reason not to share it if you're listening to this. I guess that's my point. If you want more information about Parents Helping Parents, or two things that I suggest you do, you can check out our website, www.parentshelpingparents.info, or you can follow us on Facebook at Parents Helping Parents Inc. Is the Facebook page. That's where you can really keep track of all the wonderful things we've got going on, including our spring fundraiser, which is coming up in April at Will Rogers Theater, which is going to be a really good time where we can hear a message of hope that's fun and exciting, that's being offered by a comedian that's coming in and sharing their story. And really, it's just going to be a fun time of like fellowship and message and fundraising for our organization so that we can continue to pass along all the wonderful things that we're doing now. The Facebook page is also a great way to get connected to all of our partners all across the state of Oklahoma and in surrounding states who might be doing support groups, either online or in person. That's where you can get more information, and that's where you can check those out. So we're really excited to do these live streams. It's obviously one of my favorite things to do a couple of times a month. And we never know how many people are going to be on at a time. I like to pretend that it's millions. Maybe that's just my ego. It's probably not. I can see how many people are on now, but I like to pretend that it's, millions of people that might be watching and listening. I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, here's the point. We can't see you. There's no way for us to see your head nods, to see you, giving us those thumbs up and saying, yeah, preach, like we do when we're on the front row of the church. So Utilize those buttons. Hit the like button when you hear something, hit the smiley face button, the heart button when you hear stuff that's exciting for you. If you want to interact, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, we desperately want to hear those things. There's two ways that you can provide that live. One is you can use the comments section on the Facebook video. I'm monitoring that over here on the side so I can see all of those comments and all of those questions. Utilize that, but remember that's the internet, so that's going to be there for all time. I think I make this comment every time, but maybe tens of thousands of years from now, when the ape people are excavating the archives from underneath the beaches, they're going to find records of this video, and your comment's going to be there. So I say that to say a lot of us might be uncomfortable putting our business out on Facebook for everybody to see. We honor that. So we have actually provided another autonomous way for you to interact and ask questions, which is through our text line. In the title of this video is that phone number. If you send a text message to that number, it goes directly to Parents Helping Parents Google text line. We will answer that question during the live stream. We'll say those comments during the live stream, and then all those messages get deleted. So there's no record of you, your name, your number ever being connected with that question or that comment. So really great way, if maybe this is your first time listening, you're hesitant to interact, but really have a question that you want answered, feel free to utilize that. You can also reach out to us with a private Facebook message anytime. Maybe you're watching this after the fact and you want to know more information about something that gets said tonight. Shoot us a Facebook message. I'm sure I'm going to be adding in the comment section the Facebook pages and websites that are connected to our speaker. I'm sure their organization, if you send them a Facebook message, they're going to be right on top of that as well, wanting to answer that and wanting to make sure that you have all of that information. So before we roll on, one more time, reach over, click that share button, share this video on your newsfeed so that we can reach as many people as possible. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Miss Amy LaRue, who's our wonderful speaker tonight. Amy is somebody that I've known for a long time, and she coordinates finding hope groups for an organization called Hope is Alive. She's going to tell you all about that. Amy has a wonderful story and a great message, and I'm really thankful that she's spending her time with us this evening. So Amy, the floor is yours. Get after it, girl. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. And I know, just what you said, Derek, we're all in different places in this journey. And so 7 years ago, I wouldn't be able to sit here. I'd be watching, crying, but here I am today, able to smile, and I have hope. And so I hope tonight that whatever I have to say, that you just leave with a little bit more hope than you came with. And so I work for Hope is Alive Ministries. I am their Finding Hope coordinator. And Finding Hope, we are a support group for loved ones of addicts. And we have many groups. We have 40 groups across the United States, from Massachusetts to Pagosa Springs, Colorado, Nebraska, all over, as well as we offer it in Spanish as well. So how did I find it? That's, $1 million question, right? How did I get involved in this? And so I'm going to take you back a little bit just to share a little bit about myself and how I got there, and just some of the tools I've learned along this way in the last seven and a half years now. So in 2015, our home felt like I was walking on eggshells. I felt completely broken. I was angry, frustrated, hopeless, fearful, all those things, because something was going on in our household and I didn't know what it was. I had married my high school sweetheart. We got married in 2005, and then we had two beautiful girls. We moved from Kansas to Edmond, Oklahoma. I was a kindergarten teacher at the time. My husband was in home building, construction, owned his own company. On Facebook, we were the ideal family. We looked, house, 2 kids, a dog. We looked put together. But in 2014, 2015, Facebook made it look like that, but we really weren't put together. I didn't know what was going on with my husband at the time. And I thought, well, maybe he has a brain tumor. Maybe this is going on, maybe that. He just wasn't present in our kid's life. He wasn't participating. He would skip out on meals. He would go to bed early. He was slurring his words. He wasn't present in our lives. And that's not the same guy who I had married and met in high school and got married in college and all of that, started our family. And so I did everything I thought I could do. I went to Google trying to figure out what was going on in our life. And then in 2015, it was the day before our daughter's third birthday, we had her party, and I was real nervous about it. Is he going to be able to be here? Is he going to, at that point, I thought it was a bunch of this, just mostly anxiety and depression. And right before the party, I was like, he can't stay. And so my sister-in-law and father-in-law took him back to her house, and we had this princess party. But that was really the big first event that he missed out on. And that night, something just still was off, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I'm a teacher, and so I like to be able to figure these things out, what's going on, want to be a fixer, make sure everybody's okay. And through all of this, I want to point out, I was wanting him to be okay, our kids to be okay, and didn't care about me. Honestly, I forgot to take care of myself through all of this. And so that evening, the kids had gone home with my parents up to Kansas, and it was about 11 o'clock at night. My husband gets up to get a drink of water, and I just knew down in my gut I needed to go see what he was doing. And I found him in our garage pouring vodka from a bottle. And I had no clue. Some of you out there could be thinking, like, how did you not know he was drinking vodka or drinking or had this? I didn't. I guess hid it well, even though I walked past it every day in our garage. And I just didn't think we kept alcohol in our house. And so when I found that, it was a mix of emotions. It's like, okay, is he an alcoholic? What does this mean? What does that look like? How do I fix it? What am I going to do to fix this problem? And so I tried everything. I went back to Google, and now instead of Googling brain tumors, I'm Googling how to get my husband clean and sober. And he reached out to a counselor at that time, and I would say got clean for about a month. And then the same behavior started to happen, and they just got worse. And I just was trying to finish my that year. It was a very challenging teaching year, as some years are in teaching. And I was just trying to finish that year out. So almost putting blinders, but not like I would ask him, are you drinking? He would say no. It's just that back and forth where, deep down inside, what I tell people now is if your gut is telling you yes, the answer is probably yes, because I had that so many times that I just wanted to trust and believe him. Right. And I've heard, and when I first got into all of this, like you lose trust in bucketfuls and gain it back in teaspoons. And that is so true. And so I kept trying to figure out what was going on, if he was drinking or not drinking. And then I knew he was. And by this point, he was back seeing his counselor still in group counseling. And there's one night I had to take him to group counseling, and he didn't want to go. I threatened that I'd call his dad. I may have said the word daddy. And but I drove him to this group counseling, and when I dropped him off, I just started to sob in our car, and got back home and got a show on for our girls, and just remember going back to my bedroom and calling my mom. If I couldn't fix it, maybe my mom could fix it. I wanted my mom to tell me what to do. But addiction, we didn't think was a part of our family. We didn't think we knew anyone in it. And 165 million Americans ages 12 and up are abusing drugs or alcohol right now. And so this is a secret kept behind closed doors, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But it impacts every family in some way or another, even if you don't know it. So I remember calling my mom, asking her what to do. And I honestly wanted her to tell me it was okay to leave my husband. But here I am, a school teacher in the state of Oklahoma. How am I going to be a single mom? I don't want to have that. I didn't know how to do all that, what that meant, what that looked like. And so I tell people all the time, that's the night that I feel like as a loved one of an alcoholic, I hit my rock bottom. We talk about all the time, when is our loved one going to hit their rock bottom? What's it going to look like? And we know that looks different for every single person. But I truly believe that us that are on the other side, the loved ones, that we need to hit our own rock bottom as well. And so that's the night where I was like, okay, something's got to change. I've tried all these things. Google hasn't helped. All these things, the threatening, I did it all. Just like our loved ones manipulate, threaten, all these things, I was doing that back to him as well. And it wasn't working. It didn't get us anywhere. It just got us going back and forth at each other. And so I decided, okay, it's time for me to seek a counselor. And so I did. I started to seek a counselor. And for a little bit, though, I still wanted her to tell me how to fix my husband. But what I gained was starting to learn, like, I needed to take care of myself. Like I said earlier, I was making sure my husband was okay, the kids were okay, my students were okay, my coworkers at work. I was the lead teacher on our team. Everybody was okay. And forgetting to take care of myself. And so she was able to put that kind of back in perspective for me. And so I just continued to start seeing the counselor. And then it was summertime. And I would say I would escape to Kansas. I just didn't want to be in my house with my husband. I wanted to be able to enjoy my summer with my girls. And so I would escape to Kansas. And there's one weekend we were driving back. And I remember getting a phone call from my mother-in-law. And she was asking, like, where do we need to take Shane? And I was like, take him where? To the ER. He's dehydrated. And I was like, oh no, he's been drinking. Well, he probably was dehydrated, but there's more to it. And so they ended up taking him to the ER. I called my friend. And through all of this, I want to point out, no one knew what we were going through. My parents knew, his parents knew, his sister knew, and two close friends knew, and that is it. And so I dropped the girls off at one of those friends' houses, went to the ER, and that night he was still denying it. And the doctor came in, and like my husband was arguing with the doctor about the blood test. And sure enough, my husband was over 3 times the legal limit at that point. And so who knows really where he was prior to that, because he had detoxed a little bit. And I just stood there, and it goes back to like, we all go in like that freeze flight mode, like, what are we going to do? Freeze, flight, or fight? And it really was really interesting because it was me, my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law. And really all 3 of those almost came out in us. I just sat there and sobbed. My mother-in-law started yelling, and you could just see the disappointment in my father-in-law's eyes. And at that point, like, my mother-in-law tried to hand me his things, and I said, he's not coming home. And that's where I can look back now at where I hit my rock bottom, as well as where I started to put up some firm boundaries. And we talk about that all the time, the importance of boundaries. I didn't know what I was doing, but what I finally knew is I didn't want him at home. It wasn't safe for him to be at our house. It wasn't fair to me. It wasn't fair to our kids at that time. And so, but then I'm like, what do we do with this? And his counselor had recommended that he now go to rehab. And I had no clue about rehab, what it looked, what it cost, any of that. And let me back up, prior to all of this, I really had a stigma against those, with a substance use disorder. I didn't think it could happen in my own house. And if you're out there listening, you're not alone in that. I want you to know that. And so his counselor had recommended he go to rehab, and Lance Lang, the founder of Hope is Alive Ministries, he had just spoken at our church, and I was able to get in contact with him because he is in recovery as well. And I remember calling him, and he actually answered the phone when he was at the zoo with his own family in Washington, D.C. And for that, I am forever grateful for that someone was willing to pick up the phone and talk to this wife that had no clue what was going on, that was scared to death and thinking I was going to be stuck in this cycle forever. Our family was. And so he gave me some resources for my husband, but then he turned it around on me and said, well, I have this group called Finding Hope. I would love for you to join. Our next meeting is, and he told me, and I was like, the first thought I thought of was, I'm not the one with the problem. I don't need a meeting. And, you know, I'm so grateful though that I'm a rule follower in that sense. And I went to a meeting. My husband went to rehab down in Texas. And for the first time, I felt like I could breathe, but I was still so scared because what is the future going to look like? What's going to happen when he comes back home? Because he's in this safe place right now, but the real world is still there, still here in Oklahoma City. Kids, a wife, a job. And I was so scared what was going to happen next. So I went to this meeting, and I'll tell you, like, I probably dressed up. Like, I had a meeting today all day, so I'm dressed up today. And so I went to this meeting, making sure my hair looked good, my makeup looked good, everything looked good, because I didn't want these people that were going to be at this meeting to judge me. Honestly, I felt how that shame. And I walked into this meeting, and what I saw were people just like me. They were moms and dads, grandparents, spouses that loved somebody with a substance use disorder that was in the midst of addiction, or that, may have been in recovery. And I love that what Derek talked about, like, and that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about. Recovery, it isn't just for that moment when crisis is. We need to be in recovery for life. But I walked into that meeting and I realized people were just like me. And I heard three things that night. And this is all I could tell you that from that night is, I first of all saw that I wasn't alone. And I looked around, I wasn't alone. I didn't have to go through this alone. I say it now, these people got it. You don't get it unless you live it. So my mom didn't get it. Those two friends I was talking about, they really didn't get it because they weren't living with it like I was. But these people got it. So I wasn't alone. I blamed myself for a long time. What did I do as a wife to make my husband drink? Because he didn't drink before. Like, we didn't drink in college. We didn't drink. Like, we just never was around that. So it must have been something I was doing. And so I blamed myself. But what I learned is this is a disease and he has a disease. And it's not my fault. So I wasn't alone. It's not my fault. But then I saw people smiling. Like, I was smiling at the beginning of this meeting. And what they had was hope. And I knew I wanted that. Whatever they had to make them laugh, to make, I was a little bit resentful in a way too when I first saw them because I wasn't smiling. I was torn apart inside. And so I knew whatever they had, I wanted. And so I knew I had to make the commitment for myself to keep going back. Did I want to? To be honest, no. I had to look for a babysitter for our kids. We didn't have money with, very much money at the time. I had to find a babysitter. I had to, give up my Tuesday, or I guess at that point it was like Monday nights. And why did I have to do this? Because I wasn't the one going back to pouring the booze down my throat. But God had a plan, a much bigger plan. And through all of this, through this storm that night when I dropped my girls off when my husband was in the ER, I looked at my friend and she was standing in the kitchen. I said, Sarah, I just pray that one day that I can help another spouse. I don't know if Shane's going to ever get clean or sober, but one day I want to be able to help another spouse. Did I know what that was going to look like? No, but God did. And I continued to go to Finding Hope, and I went to Al-Anon, and I just started to immerse myself in learning more about this disease, but also learning more about my part in the disease and why I needed to continue to go to these meetings and to work my own recovery program. Because My husband was at rehab. He was getting his own tools to work his recovery. And it wasn't my job to work his recovery for him. It was his job to work his own recovery. And it was my job to work my own recovery. And so tonight I just want to share a little bit about why I'm passionate about recovery and why it needs to be for life. And I've learned so much, and I continue to learn. Every meeting I attend, even if I'm speaking at a meeting, I leave learning something more about myself and how relationships beyond my relationship with my husband and I. My husband is clean and sober today, and I'm so grateful for it. He's working his own recovery. He's actually at a Celebrate Recovery meeting right now as I'm working on myself tonight. And telling my story helps me in my own recovery. And so I do a lot with definitions. And so a while back, I looked up, what does it mean when you're in recovery? Recovery, the definition is a return to normal state of health, mind, and strength. So through all of this, and if you're out there listening in, if your health, I was so skinny through my husband's addiction. I wasn't eating. That year, that teaching year, they say usually you're the sickest, like you get sick the most during your first or second year student teaching. No, mine was during that year because my immune system was so much is further down. I was sick more often that year than any other year of my teaching career. My health wasn't well. My mind wasn't well. My mental health was not well. I was always consumed by what is going to happen when I go home. What's going to be there? How's he going to be? What am I supposed to do about this? Like, that's all my thoughts were about. I was able to kind of escape it when I was in the classroom with my students. That was my safe place. I would actually stay at school as long as I could before I'd have to pick my girls up from daycare, because school was my safe place. My mind, like I said, was consumed. It was not healthy. And just overall, my spiritual life, it just all of it, I wasn't there. And so I needed something for myself to get back to a normal state of health, mind, and strength. And I feel like, I know some of you probably can agree, we pour so much into getting our loved ones clean and sober, trying to help them, doing that. And, we say no to us all the time and yes to them. We give, and we give up so much emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, that we're not in a healthy spot. And when you're not in that healthy mindset, you can't make wise decisions. You can't do this. I neglected so many, other friendships, all of this. Like, I wasn't who God created me to be, Amy. I wasn't the wife. I was, during all of this, during my husband's, I was his nurse. I was his secretary. I was everything. I mean, his driver. I was, the list could go on, but I wasn't his wife. And I had to remember, I need to get back to that spot of being his wife. And so once we find ourselves coming to these meetings, I'm all about application as well. You can come and you can log on to these meetings, attend meetings, whether it's Parents Helping Parents in person or Finding Hope or Al-Anon or Nar-Anon or PALS, whatever that is. I want you guys to stay plugged in, but not just to get plugged in, but to the application process is, okay, I'm learning these things, I'm adding to my tool belt, but now how do I live this out? And that's what the support of a support group is about, is to lean on one another and to support them. Okay, I'm struggling with this. How did you get through this? And I think part of the recovery, people always ask about interventions and all this. And my biggest thing, or the three main things I talk about in recovery, is how do we get back to that normal state of mind and health? Is I think about the codependency. I didn't know what codependency is. So if you're sitting out here listening, it's okay. That's what you're here for. Continue to come, continue to educate yourself. Because you'll hear some of these buzzwords. I feel like it's sometimes when I go to the doctor and they give me buzzwords or my car, but learn them and then learn how to apply them. So codependency is someone who has let another person's behavior affect him or her, who is obsessed with controlling that person's behavior. So I was obsessed with controlling my husband's behavior, trying to get the outcome I wanted. And by doing that, I wasn't giving him even the opportunity to try. And I said, part of that codependency is, I saw a video once and it talked about codependency. We become addicted to them. So that's our addiction, is trying to fix them, trying to maybe be that superhero. And so we have to remember to step out of that codependency, that cycling of trying to fix, or control the other person. Is, are we in our lane? Or are we in their lane? If we're starting to cross into their lane, we need to come back over to our lane. And so that's what I would encourage you to, each night or throughout the day, you might even have to stop and think, am I staying in my lane or am I getting in their lane? And so that's the best way for me to describe codependency. And so we have to, part of that codependency is that detachment. It doesn't mean we stop loving them. We continue to love them, but we're detaching ourselves from that chaos and putting our focus back on us. Maybe you are so much used to giving to them, trying to fix them. Use that energy back on you. And it sometimes doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel comfortable because we're so used to the chaos. Even though we don't like the chaos, we become comfortable in the chaos. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but continue to seek support for yourself and rely on other people who have been there. Another way I feel like for recovery for ourselves is to stop the enabling. I actually, here, I'm gonna put a plug real quick, just did a podcast. I started a podcast called, it's just on Apple and Spotify, Finding Hope podcast. A Hope is Live Ministries podcast. So it's real simple, Finding Hope. You'll see my face. But I want you guys, tomorrow a new episode releases just about enabling. And Karen is my guest on it, and she has an incredible story about enabling. But enabling, we have to remember, I get those phone calls. I know I'm enabling, but, well, if you know you're enabling, we got to stop that. Stop the but. I'm going to change it. Like, I'm going to stop enabling. And it might just be that one thing that you need to stop, and then the next. So enabling, so the difference, I have a definition. The difference between enabling and helping, sometimes I'm like, when we're in the chaos or the storm, it's hard to actually see the difference because we think we're helping, but in real honesty, we are enabling. And we think sometimes when we are helping, I'm going to put air quotes on that, is because we're scared of the outcome if we don't. And so enabling is hindering a growth in a person, and it's doing for them what they can and should be able to do on their own. So if you're not doing this for your other adult children or your, or other people are, then you don't need to be doing it for them. And helping is doing for others what they truly, truly cannot do for themselves. So, the biggest thing is I always hear is the money or the shelter of enabling or the phone. I want them to pay for their phone because I want to be able to get a hold of them. But what do they usually do with the phone? They call you only when they need something. And so we become resentful when we start to enable as well, even though we are doing it. We get that resentful sense. And so that takes us back to not a healthy mindset or health, showing us that we need to get back into our own recovery and get that support from people in our communities, in our support groups, Parents Helping Parents, Finding Hope, or whatever it might be. I call my sponsor all the time throughout because I needed her support through it, and she got it. And so reach out. And so another part of recovery, so we talked about the cycle of codependency, enabling, and the last one I kind of mentioned it about boundaries, is we have to have firm boundaries. And it doesn't change because it's their birthday or because it's Thanksgiving or Christmas. I know that's so hard, but a boundary has to be firm, and that's the only way to protect you and to keep your peace. And, it allows you to say no and gives you that permission sometimes to say no. no to the enabling, no to the codependency, is putting it. And so all the time I tell people is our recovery is lifelong. We're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, and we all make mistakes. And so many times sometimes I even did this. I'm guilty of it. I went to that Finding Hope meeting. I want what they had it. And so I thought I had to get there overnight, right? We think we have to be exactly where that person is. But honestly, recovery is one step at a time. We're not trying to race up to this top of the staircase, because what's going to happen? We're going to trip, we're going to fall, we're going to be out of breath, and we're going to be right back down to the bottom, hurt and not wanting to get back up to continue that. So what I tell people is, what's that one thing you can change today? Maybe you need to step out of that cycle of codependency. Okay, we're going to detach. We're going to detach today, and we're going to have that strength. We're going to call someone. We're going to give it to God, asking him to give us the strength to get through it. Or maybe it's that enabling. You're so tired of always giving gas money, or you're tired of this, or, okay, we're going to stop. That's that one step we're going to do. We're going to get confident on that one step, and then we're going to take the next step up and get confident on that. Maybe now I need to set that firm boundary. Maybe I'm going to not give myself permission not to answer the phone between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. and put your phone on do not disturb, And I tell people all the time, I know that's hard, but before cell phones, how do people get a hold of people in emergencies? 911, and they still can. You can't save them. I tell, we think a lot of times we can save them if we knew where they were, if we knew what they were doing. Ultimately, we can't save them. That's only God can do that. And so we have to remember our recovery is just one baby step, one step at a time. And then sometime maybe you're gonna be close to the top of the staircase, and you can be where I am now, where now I get to share with you guys my journey. I get to give the tools I have learned. This didn't happen overnight. Like I said, I continue to pray about how God is going to use it. And it was in 2019 that Lance approached me to come on part-time. And I was like, okay, but I don't have a counseling degree. I didn't feel qualified, but God had qualified me through my experience. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for the opportunity now to support families and all of that. And, I would just, if you're out there listening, get plugged in, continue to get plugged in. I tell people meetings are non-negotiables. We want our loved ones to be at all these AA meetings doing all this. It needs to be non-negotiable for us as well. And you said, put it in your phone. If someone asks you to go to dinner, you say, no, I have a meeting tonight. I just believe it's so important that we continue to seek recovery for ourselves and get plugged in. And, if you're out there listening, I know this is a lot tonight. And I really went through it really fast, but just know you're not alone. Just like what I learned at Finding Hope, you're not alone in this. It's not your fault, and there is hope, and there's people out there that want to support you in this journey.
Amy, thank you so much. There was so much stuff to unpack there. And I actually made a whole list of questions, and I'm trying to figure out, with the time we got left, maybe which one or two to ask you more specifically about. I think I'll start here. You mentioned that everything, both for your husband, but also for your family, had this deep thread of secrecy in it. Why do you think that there's so much secrecy involved in addiction, both for the person who has the substance use disorder, but also for the family?
I think it boils down to shame and guilt. And I think, that's my number one answer, is that shame. And that's where now I'm on this mission to break that stigma. This is a disease of the brain. Some people aren't there, and they might be out there listening and they're not there yet, but this is a disease of the brain. And so we've got to break that shame and realize it's not our fault. Like, it's not my husband's fault that he is an alcoholic either, right? Alcoholic in recovery now, it's that disease. And so we have to be willing, because the judgment we get from other people. Just the other day I was talking, and I could see the judgment on someone's face. It's like, no, like I'm trying to break that stigma
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. You may or may not have answers to any of these. I find myself having, the longer I do this, the less answers I have, if that makes any sense. Being a part of your story was walking through this while you had fairly young children at home. What experience or advice might you offer to a family member or a family that also has young children in terms of just how to navigate it with the children, how to, in age appropriate ways, make sure they're okay? I mean, obviously we know this is impacting the entire family no matter what their age is. So what were some of the maybe one or two things that maybe you wish you would have known prior, right, in hindsight?
So my girls at that time were 3 and 6, and they knew something. We just talked about daddy being sick, and I really felt, I have a friend that's a counselor, and so I went to her for advice on it. And when he went to rehab, we said that he was sick. Now they're older, they're 13 and 10, and so we have those real conversations with them about, okay, daddy's still sick, and we have to make sure, it's not an adult beverage. We say that because not all adults can drink it, right?
Yeah.
And so we're very, we don't like sugarcoat it. As they've gotten older, we've met them where they are. And I think a great resource I wish I would have known about was the Peaceful Family Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That aspect of, that's a great organization for kids that can go through a program.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Hey, one question I ask everybody that joins me, if you had 60 seconds just to give like a singular message of hope to a family member or a person who might find this video that's struggling, what would that just real simple, short, concise message be for that person?
Don't give up. And if they still have breath in their lungs, there's still hope. And I'll stop there because I could tangent, but yes, there's still hope. Don't give up. Continue to work on you, and get plugged into a community with people who understand.
Yeah, great. I love that. Hey, Amy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything that you're doing for families across the state of Oklahoma and across the country with what you guys are doing at Finding Hope and with the Finding Hope support group. So best of luck to you guys. And we really just appreciate your time and appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, anytime. All right. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and we will catch you here again in 2 weeks. Till next time, everybody.